April 11th water board meeting. Introduce myself, if you don't know me, my name is Scott Martin, Chairman of the Board. Roy Ricker, Board Member Kim Toomey, Board Member John Reza, Superintendent of Raleigh Water Department. Laura Hamilton is our office manager. Marie Grover is the Water Department's administrative assistant, and sitting here is Barbara Cook. She's the vice president of Weston and Sampson Engineering, environmental engineering firm. And again, thank you for all for coming tonight. Tonight's meeting, or presentation on Article 13, the special town meeting. One thing I would just like to ask is we're going to have a presentation, and there's going to be a question and answer session after the presentation. I would ask you please to save all your questions or write them down if you have them for the end of the presentation, please. The Raleigh Water Department consists of the water source consists of 3 wells. Our water source. Well 2, which is by the diner, well, the Agawam Diner, the intersection of 133 and Route 1. Well 3, which is up off Boxford Road, which was put in 1981. Do believe well 2 was put in the 60s. Well 5, which was put online in 2004. And there around 2006, we started having issues with station wells 3 and 5 with quality issues and the quality of water with manganese. And they've been problematic since 2006. We've had numerous hits on the raw water side of contaminants, primary and secondary contaminants. And back in May of 2010, we went to town meeting with a proposal to the town for $9 million filtration plant, which the town approved. Thank you very much. That was 2 years ago. We had just put it out to bid. We went through all the approvals through DEP. And we submitted for the state revolving fund for funding this project, funding the building of the project. The state revolving fund does not fund the design phase of it. It funds the construction of the plant and upgrades to the system. And in the article of 2010, it was for the construction of the water treatment plant, the design phase, and the upgrades to the system to run it. I do believe in, of course, we did this, and the project at that time did not have ACO. We now have an administrative consent order on this project, which was put on the town of Raleigh, I do believe, in October of 2010. The administrative consent order was put on by the DEP. And in the administrative consent order is that it's an order we must build this plant. We're getting the majority of funding is through the state revolving fund, but in the all the bids come in higher than projected, and to meet the lowest bid, we have to have a $3.3 million increase in the total project. Went from $9 million to $12.3 million. State revolving fund has as the state has told us that they will fund it. They will give us the funding at the 2% rate, but we have to come back to the townspeople and ask the townspeople for the permission to borrow the money from the state revolving fund and lock in at 2%. So, and the presentation before us is that we're going to present is Barbara Cook, and our engineer is going to present the numbers. You'll see all the bids that came in, and the informational tonight is for the Article 13 of the town meeting to increase the borrow $3.3 million to build this treatment facility. So it's very important to the town, and like I said, especially the people on the west side know the quality of the water, the discoloration, the odor. It isn't good. We've been trying to flush the contaminant, what we've been treating to flush the mains, and stirring the water up. I'm sure you all have seen, your water being stirred and discoloration. So with that, I will hand it over to Barbara in style presentation.
Okay, so I'm going to cover some of the more technical parts, and if maybe you were at town meeting or that we had a public meeting 2 years ago, some of this is repetitive, but I thought in case that some people might not have been here for that, I'd go through it kind of quickly. So as Scott mentioned, well 3 and 5 are the two wells that have two problems with them. They have occasional bacteria hits and they have high levels of manganese. Right now, manganese is only a secondary parameter that the state sets. That means it's just an aesthetic or not a health-related parameter. It's solely discoloration is the problem with the manganese. The bacteria is covered by adding chlorine to the water, so the water is safe to drink. Over time, the manganese levels in both well 3 and well 5 have increased, so they've been harder to treat as the wells have aged. The chlorine that is used to control the bacteria is consumed. There's what's called a chlorine demand in the water, so the bacteria sort of uses that up, and also the manganese uses that up. So the more manganese we have in the water, the more we need to add chlorine to make sure we kill all the bacteria. There was, as Scott had mentioned, there's been occasional hits of total coliform, and that was in 2006 and 2007. There were some watershed issues that have been dealt with, and also, as Scott mentioned, in the May 2010 town meeting, you voted to appropriate $9 million for the project. So I mentioned these, or at least the maximum contaminant level, the secondary maximum contaminant level for manganese is 0.05 milligrams per liter. On a rare occasion, one of the wells will exceed the iron level, which is 0.3. Again, that's a secondary non-health related parameter. Most of the time, it's the manganese that's a problem. There was also a rule that went into effect relatively recently that requires, if you have bacteria in the well, that you have to treat it with chlorine, and it has to be in contact with that chlorine for a certain amount of time before anybody can drink that. And so Rowley has met those requirements. This is just some history of manganese. So you have manganese on this column. The blue bars represent well 3, and the red bars represent well 5. And where the little diamonds are above here, that's where there was a total coliform positive, well so about 10 times what the secondary standard is. Well 5 seems to generally change with how it's operated in the system. These results are back from 2008 to 2009. We were doing a lot of testing at that point because we needed it to do the pilot study we did. Since then, they've only done annual testing, so in 2010 and 2011, well 3 levels have actually increased somewhat from 0.73 to 1.2. And for well 5, it stayed pretty consistent around 0.4. This graph shows you, gives you an idea of the chlorine demand, and I'm just showing it for well 3. This is for the summer of 2009. So these numbers are chlorine in milligrams per liter. The blue bars is what is added at the well site, and the red bars is what's left after the manganese chews up some of the chlorine. So you can see that there's a big difference, like maybe it averages around 2.5 that's added, and what's left in the water is either a little under 1 or starting to go above 1. Then we can jump to this past summer. You can see that for health protection reasons, we're making sure that what is in the water is slightly above 1. To give you a little more history on the project, we applied for state funding in August of 2010. Scott mentioned that in October of 2010, we went under an administrative consent order with DEP. In January of 2011, we were told that we would receive the state funding, which was actually a very good thing. There were 65 projects submitted to the state for this funding, and only 25% of those projects got funding. So we were very good at getting the funding for this project. Then for the pilot testing, and the design pilot was approved by the DEP. And the pilot testing, we had talked about this before, but it's a very small scale water treatment plant. And we used basically a membrane system and a trailer to make sure that the membrane system would work with your water, and also to get design parameters during that pilot testing so we would know how to construct a full-scale system. The design was approved in December of 2011, so not too long ago. And then we had our bid opening on February 29th of 2012. Assuming we get the additional appropriation for $3.3 million at town meeting, construction will begin around July. And it's a 20-month project, so construction will be completed in March of 2014. To go over some project costs with you, what we're showing here is a breakdown of some of the costs in May of 2010 when you voted in the $9 million appropriation, and the costs that we're seeing today that's totaled at $12.3 million. So the engineering, design, permitting, and the construction services, so that's like a clerk of the works that's on site making sure that the jobs gets built as it was designed. Originally, we had budgeted about $1.3 million, and we will need $1.4 million for that work. The work that the Rowley Water Department did on their own, and each of these I'll get in a little more detail too, went up a little bit from about $440,000 to about $650,000. And the construction of the plant itself with a 5% contingency, because there are always change orders and you always want a budget for that. In May, that was budgeted at about $7.3 million, and now we are asking for about $10.2 million. So to get into some reasons why the engineering increased, we added some work at well 2. We thought it would make sense for the town. We were doing some work there anyways. It will actually help well 2 run more efficiently and very likely reduce some of the operating costs at well 2. Also, we had to go through several additional Conservation Commission submittals. There was an earth removal permit, which gets into the difficulty of the site that we were at. The Pingree Farm Road, we originally thought we were going to go in on the private road that was paved, and we decided that we couldn't do that, so we're now going in on the actual access road for Pingree Farm, which is actually called Pingree Farm Road. And so there was some redesign that was necessary for that, and also some easement drawings and survey. Also, the membrane manufacturer, when we were designing the project, actually upgraded their membrane design. So we had to change our design in the middle to make sure that what we spec'd, they would be able to provide. And then last but not least, we had to do a Mass Historical survey and permit. That is required for any project that gets state funding. So some of the projects that were done internally by the Raleigh Water Department, as you know and we talked about, they replaced all the water meters in town, about 1,700. That included new transmitters, and there's an automatic meter reading system, and that all that information comes back to the water department office. And there's related computer software at the office to read that. There was also an upgrade generally to the office computers and some licensing. I had mentioned that groundwater rule, and that came into play during this time, and so there were some improvements that were required in the interim before the filtration plant went online to make sure that the water was safe to drink. Well 2 improvements, there were some minor improvements that occurred at well 2, and then there were some state required chemical feed system improvements that had to happen also. On the plant construction itself, the site is a very difficult site, and because of protection areas around the wells, there's a lot of habitat in the area that we needed to protect and not disturb. So we were kind of jammed into a hill, and obviously most of you know, if you've done any construction, it's harder to build something on a hill than on a flat piece of land. So it was a pretty difficult site. There's some ledge involved. We didn't know that when, we gave you the estimate back in May 2010. Palm Membrane, their price increased between when we did our estimate and when the bids were let go in February. We did a lot of the security improvements. The fencing alone, we fenced the entire site, was worth about $100,000. Also, there are security improvements related to the fuel that is used. We decided to go ahead and use natural gas so that there wouldn't be propane tanks on site or diesel fuel on site. Although the gas, there's a bigger capital cost for it, the heating units, the therm for natural gas, are 3 times more expensive than they are for propane or diesel. So that will help save you in your operating costs in the future. There was additional concrete tankage under the building rather than outside on the site because we were crammed in, and so we had to put it under the building than having tanks outside above ground next to the treatment plant. Again, the natural gas generator, we could have used a propane generator or a diesel generator. natural gas generators are more expensive. And there were other plant efficiencies too. We have a very efficient heating system, which will help to save operating costs in the future. We also included a complete system-wide SCADA system, which is your telemetry or computer system. So many times you do a treatment plant and you focus on just what's going on in the treatment plant, but we're upgrading the system at all the water department facilities, all the wells and the storage tank too. So these are the bids that came in on February 29th, 2012. You can see that the bids are very competitive. The first 4 bids are all within, $400,000, so that shows that they're very competitive. We had 8 bids. That's a very good number for a project like this. We did have to basically eliminate the low bidder, Winston Builders, because the state has a single project limit that they set for contractors, and Winston Builders bid over that project limit. So just because they did that, we technically have to eliminate them. So I wanted to show you a couple of renderings of the building. This is the front view of the treatment plant. This is the administrative area, and back behind with the higher roof is where an aerator, the chemical feed, and the membrane systems are. This is a side view with the loading dock, and this is the entryway. So you can see this gabled roof comes up here to the higher roof with the process equipment, and this here again is the administrative area. With that, I'll turn it over to John.
With 7/1/2010, we began quarterly billing. All billing prior to that, as far as I know, was twice a year. That time, the average hourly water bill on a monthly basis for 2024 was $51. Currently, the present budget, the average cost is $57 a month. And for 2013, the average cost would be $89 a month. These are the tiered blocks for 2012. 25,775, 25 and 50 is 84, 50 around 375, and so on. The rates that we're proposing for 2013, because we're going monthly, change the block tiers to accommodate going 12 times a year instead of 4. So the 0 to 4,000 would be 1125, and you can see the rest, 4 to 36 is 13 and a quarter, 36 is 14.25. Do you have any questions so far?
You said 2013, this doesn't come on to 2014. What's the projection for 14, 15, 16?
Well, for 2014, we don't actually have all the numbers yet. What we're waiting to find out from DEP is some staffing requirements. There's a question with automatic plans, whether they have to be manned while they're running, or if we'll be able to allow it to run unmanned. Then there's a question of how many operators will be required. Would it be one? Would it be 2? And another question is, are we able to staff with the current staff that we have, or will we be able to bring on another person? So we're still working those out. We hope to have those numbers for the town meeting. And as soon as we get the answers from them on what we're actually going to have to staff here. I don't want to give you a number that isn't true.
It would be accurate to say that it will be more.
It will be more, yes.
Yep.
Oh, absolutely. There's the operating the staffing requirement is going to be. Can I run it automatic? Or will I have to have someone there? So,
Have you factored in the cost, and probably more for you, of loss of power and what kind of a backup you have to keep this running if we lose electricity? Is that already factored in the costs?
So, yeah, there's a standby generator, and generally you exercise it once a month, so there's not a lot of fuel costs.
Is the state giving us any money or only a 2% interest rate on the money that we got to borrow?
2% interest rate.
I mean, there's no programs like they did with school buildings and different things like that?
No,
Yeah.
Schools are grants-based already.
This is a borrow from the SRF fund. It's not a grant.
Quite a number of years ago, the FHA used to give out grants for water treatment plants. That's been going on for quite some time.
Actually, we did some numbers as to if we had to put this all out to municipal bond, as we did numbers that both at the 90 million that we initially thought it was going to cost as to the 12.3 now. And the difference between the 2% and 5% is sending it out to a municipal bond. And interest alone was $4 million, and the borrowing $9 million, and it was like $6 million in borrowing 12.3. So, and with the borrowing from the state revolving fund, you're actually, if you had to send it out to a municipal bond, you're saving $3 to $4 million if we didn't have the SRF funding.
The $3 million that you're asking about borrowing from the state revolving fund, I haven't seen Article 13. Are you looking for an override or a debt exclusion? What type of funding are you asking for at town meeting?
Actually, because it's not involved in the tax rate, it's not an override, it's actually voted on town meeting floor.
But once they'll have to be raised and appropriated, so is it a debt exclusion? Will it be coming off the tax rate after we fund it?
It's all like a water rate.
It's all the water.
So it's all in the water rate?
Yeah.
So then I'll rephrase that. Once you pay that back, will you be lowering the water rates, or?
Absolutely.
And at town meeting, can you present a schedule of as you pay off? The $12 million, are you borrowing at what rate, 30 years, 20 years? 15?
20.
20.
Probably goes out at 20.
So at $12 million, you'll probably a $20 million cost. I guess what I'm asking for is, could you show us what the total cost is of the borrowing at the rates that you have for the $12 million at town meeting, so that it's the same as buying a house, a capital asset, you really want to know what it is, and
What the total payback is.
right, and then you will have depreciation, etc. But can we ever expect our children to be able to see a more reasonable water rate?
I think that's an interesting subject as well, because a lot of the articles that I've seen in the past at town meeting with dividends, you see what it is that they want appropriated, but you never see what the payback is.
It's been asked, they just haven't
It's been asked,
provided
but it's
it.
never
So.
been shown.
John, there are some debts that are gonna clear soon, aren't there?
Well, there's other debt service that we have.
I want to say over the next 5 years that some of those will get paid off, I think.
It's 10 years.
Is it 10 years?
10
Okay.
We have two
Erosion
debts.
control got paid off this year.
So what will that do when those are paid off? What will that do?
When a debt gets paid off, there's less principal and interest that the town has to pay on an annual basis, so it will help to reduce the water rate.
You can actually, it should be reflected in the rate. There's two other notes as well. It's the Kingery well one, which is still out there for a while. Your water really.
What causes the level of the manganese to increase in the well first? Because you
That's a
mentioned
good
that
question.
you've said it's been increasing.
It has to do with geology. I mean, we can't really explain that. We don't know why it's increasing.
So you're pumping water right now out of 2 or 3 wells?
We're pumping water out of 3 wells in total, wells 3 and 5, the ones with manganese problem.
So where is the well that doesn't have the problem?
That's by the A1 diner at the intersection of Route 1 and 133.
Behind the baseball field.
Behind
So-
the baseball.
By the ball field.
What's it cost to drill new wells?
Well, first you have to apply to the state for a withdrawal permit and be approved to withdraw water.
But that's,
And then you have to go through a series of pump testing. You have to acquire enough land to establish the zone 1, which is a 400-foot radius around the well. It usually works out to be around 16 acres. And
It's-
then you drill a well, and you hope the water's gonna be good.
Many
Well,
wells,
stay good over a period of years. I mean, what happened to us with well 5 is it was in for 2 years and we had no bacteria or no other problems whatsoever. And the thing just went south in a period of 2 years. So while you can test it, maybe water quality is good at the time, there's no guarantee that it's going to stay that way. So the question is, do you want to gamble $4 or $6 million on something that you may end up having to treat anyway?
what type of confidence do you guys have in this engineering firm that put together this proposal? Because in all honesty, if somebody came to me and told me the price to build my plant is going to cost 30% more in less than a 2-year period, I'd probably throw them out of the house.
Well, I have complete confidence, actually. They're probably one of the most respected firms in the eastern United States. They have offices all the way up and down the coast from here to Florida. And I think it was interesting that I did a little bit of research because I was surprised as well as to why those costs would increase that much. Interestingly enough, I looked at fuel and oil first because that pretty much affects everything that we do and touch. And it seems between 2010 and 2012, there's been a 46% increase in fuel costs. All right? Gas back then was $2.67, today it's $3.88. And the last projection that I got from one of the trucking publications I got is that it's going to go up another 5% this summer. So after seeing that, I thought maybe perhaps I'd go after some material goods. So I looked at bulk copper price charts because there's probably a couple miles of wire in that plant. That went up 76% in 2 years. So still being interested. And then I went and looked at steel prices, rebar in particular, because we're going to have a ton of rebar in this plant, concrete. And that went up 33% in 2 years. So could you tell me how much it's going to go up in the next 2 years?
No, but I just think that 30-something% is kind of drastic in a couple of
Well, I think
years.
this is pretty drastic too.
Well, that's one of the questions along that line is, at town meeting, when I was at that town meeting, it was a great rush that this had to be done ASAP and everyone was on board. And it was almost 2 years later before it went out to bid. And I've done other capital projects. I've done capital projects here in town, building committees. In 2 years, that 2-year spread seems to have killed us for the $3 million. Why did it take that long to get the bids out? What, didn't you have everything ready to go beforehand? Or?
No, actually, there had to be some site investigation first. Then you have to go through the design processes, which also has to be approved by the state. And they get up to 3 months to do that. And then we were hit with the archaeological survey, which was required to shoot up another one.
So could you
And
say
then we had
that?
to wait for the round with the SRF funding.
So did you request the full amount of the funds before you really had everything done? Should you have maybe gone for $1 million to do all the investigative and prep work before you went for the $10 million, whatever it was, $9 million?
No, I don't think so.
Where's the $9 million price come from? If there were no bids or anything, why that number?
It was an estimate based on market prices at that time.
But from that particular firm?
Yes.
But then we didn't get the 2 years later.
Correct.
So how do we get?
That's how long it took to go through the bureaucratic process, through all the various boards that you have to get the approval.
Oh, I understand that completely, but
Needed by a middle permit,
We had to get the approval.
This thing's a
wait, one at a time.
We had to get the approval from the pilot program, the results from the pilot program,
Right.
to even go forward with design. Then you have to have the approval through Concom. Right, you got, I said that pilot.
That, you send it to the state, and they get a number of months to review that, and send it back to you.
Then you do your design. You go before, you had to go get the approval, we had to get the approval from conservation. We had to get approval from the ZBA. We had to get approval from the Board of Selectmen. Then it goes and you get the final approval of the design from DEP. Until you get the final approval from DEP, nothing can be done. You can't send it out, you can't put it out to bid until you get that final approval. Then you can send it out to bid. And we've you know, and it's just, it's the bureaucratic process of this state for towns and municipalities.
I get that, but my question was, where did the $9 million price tag come from?
The
Is that
$9 million
projected
is what
or
price
projected?
tag
Was that
came from.
forward?
Yeah, wow.
So you go through this process when you do a project like this, and originally you estimate that a project will be a certain value based on historical water treatment plants that are similar.
That's my question. Who gave us those
We
figures?
did that, Weston
Okay.
Sampson did that. And then as you get further along in the design, each phase of the design, you fine tune that price more. We knew before we went out to bid that we would likely have to come back to you for more money. We did not know how much money that would be.
So how do we know it stops here with this additional $3.3 million?
That's the final bid for construction. We accept that bid, that's it.
Can we
Right, these
scale
are the
back?
final, those numbers
So,
can
are
they-
the final numbers for this project.
Can the project be scaled back at all? There was administrative offices at the plant. I mean, can anything be scaled
Treatment
back?
plants are like any machine. They're designed to produce a certain process. When you go in and start pulling parts out of them, it no longer functions the way it's supposed to, that it was originally designed to do.
It's a whole lot of time to be located in the administrative building.
No.
I can have another.
There was no point in adding that much extra space into the plant, but just increase the price of the project.
I have a question though. When you say the average, you tell me that the price is going to be about $89 for the average one bill paid.
In 2000.
Translate that into gallons, because I think you're underestimating the number of gallons that the average water user uses.
What would your estimate be?
Well, I don't use that much water. I don't have an irrigation system. I pump about 7,000 gallons on a daily, on a monthly basis.
Right.
That comes out to about 14,000 gallons.
It's closer to 8,000 actually. Every year when we do the annual report, I have to generate a residential gallons per capita day figure. Past number of years, it's come out between 60 and 65 gallons per person. The state requires us to keep it below 65 gallons per person. And if we don't, we have to implement more stringent conservation
We
measures.
need to come up with a fee schedule, because I see a big jump between 4,000, then it goes up high at a higher level between the next step.
Right.
So you're going to be capturing most of those people in that second tier. Not anybody's going to be in the first tier, because you have to be under 4,000.
Right.
So you really, in that rate schedule competition, that you had a guide.
Well, when you had to create a rate schedule that was going to satisfy what the expense line was going to be for the year for the car.
I know, so you had time to then you plugged it backwards to come up with random scenarios. But that seems kind of unclear to have the average at a second tier at a higher rate, when that's where most people are going to be.
Well, actually, our original tier was 0 to 25,000. So that kind of encompassed everything. expense figure at the end of the year.
So
Why not
he's,
make each step at a different level, incremental wise? Why do you make a jump from first one to second one?
When you go on a monthly basis, it's a lot different than on a quarterly basis because you don't use the same amount of gallonage in a month as you do in a quarter. So to use a 0 to 25,000, there's a throw the other box out because nobody exceeds the 25,000. And the state encourages us to do a tiered block rate to do incentive for water conservation. So that in fact is the reason why we instituted a tiered block system because of that request. And that came as part of the condition for our
If this does not pass town meeting, is the project dead or what?
The project's never dead,
Sorry?
I say the project's never dead, you have a consent order.
Is that imposed or did
What
you
is
ask
the
for it?
consent? How does that work?
An administrative consent order gives you a time to build it.
And if the administrative,
Yes,
Or you have to put in 2 more wells? This is just remedy?
This is the one they've approved.
this states right in it, yeah. No.
so what? Can you negotiate the consent order?
This is a legal document issued to the town of Raleigh.
But could the town propose an alternate resolution?
Not at this point. This is
Because we've already,
Is that non-negotiable to the state?
absolutely stated right in here.
So the next question is, with all due respect, in everyone's pocketbooks, you go to town meeting, it doesn't happen. What's plan B? Because my question is, you've got to build a plant,
Right.
but you're saying that says very specifically what you showed us, that consent order, and that to me says you have to have negotiated with the state for that plant that we see you showing us. And if you go back to the state and say, listen, we've got $9 million, there's other towns around here that have put in water treatment plants for half that. Can you go back to the state and say, listen, we've got $9 million to work with, we need a different consent order?
I don't think they do that.
Well, has that question been
There's a
posed?
certain, because of the bacteria, I think there's a certain, it has to get as soon as possible. Once again, if you drill another well, what's your guarantee that that's going to stay? Bacteria. Anybody can guarantee that?
we can't guarantee, but
Why would you waste $4 to $6 million on the
The wells don't cost
I
that.
would, I would
We've funded those
say
before.
$9,000,
That's
then you can put your own well in.
not the truth.
$9,000.
They don't allow solutions like that. Point-of-use devices are not permitted.
But well, two has been in since the 60s, and we were in the colony of two, so I mean, we have.
Sorry, I can't hear.
Well, two has been in place, you said, since the 60s.
Yes, it has.
So
Well,
it's,
once again, it's a question of geology. I mean, can you tell me where to drill the next well so that it won't be in trouble for the next 40 years?
yeah, right.
Well, the thing is this is that,
It can only take so much withdrawal out of that.
But at town meeting, when you have an alternate plan in case.
Hold on a minute, hold on.
What you done?
There's a safe yield factor for every aquifer that you put well into. Okay? If you exceed that safe yield factor, you dry out the well. Alright? So just because it's a good source of water doesn't mean you can pop 5 wells in there and start flowing like crazy. It doesn't work that way.
well, the thing is also is that, under the consent order that the state put the town on, they are lending the town, the water department, the town, at a 2% rate to fund this. And they're saying, that, the project came in over, they've got other communities also that are in the same situation here. And they're saying, in which they said, we'll let you borrow the $3.3 million. We have really borrowed that $3.7 million. Okay, at 2%. If at town meeting this gets defeated, what you're putting at risk is all of your funding for this project through the SRF.
From the state.
From the
And
state.
the community bond rates right now are in the 3s and 4s.
But the
Not
ACO
that
still stands,
Doesn't
you
go
know,
away.
it doesn't go away.
But it's negotiable. That's my point. As the Board of Health consent orders happen, Newbury had one. It was not draconian. They were able to negotiate. Other towns that get consent orders, they're negotiable.
Nah, they're not too negotiable with drinking water control.
Question,
I don't know if you've ever negotiated with them?
Yeah, I've
Drinking water
negotiated.
control?
Not, of course not.
Okay.
Have you?
Yes, I
For a
have.
consent order?
Oh, yes, I was there the day they gave us.
For this, but not for other cases. That's my point. For this one, but not for others. And you negotiated this, I'm saying, if we don't get the funding, that's not correct. Excuse me?
I said, what consent order did you negotiate?
I did not negotiate one. I have worked on the Board of Health when other towns were under consent orders. Colleagues in other towns, Newbury specific. Septic, Title V. Septic. And again, it's a health issue, water. Yes, it's not potable water in, however, it's the state, it's the same boards, you know.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
But you can't sit here, you have not asked the state, and to sit here and make the statement, this is ironclad, it's just not the fact. It's not, you cannot say that
Maybe
this
you should
is,
consult the town council.
Yeah.
then let's have
You
them
know
at town
what? You
meeting,
don't
let's
need
ask
to be
them.
arrogant. You're asking us for $3 million. Don't be arrogant with us. We have a lot of questions.
I'm telling you
And
what
it's
your
not going as
course of
smoothly as
action
you like, but that's too bad.
I've already talked to
sir.
the council.
so let's accept for a moment that the consent order is fairly rigid, but there has to be a lot of variables in the design, if we go back to our engineers, that are not specified in the consent order. So the question is, since we received the bid, have we sat with the bidders, both winning and losing, and said, what do you suggest that would drive some costs out of this? Same thing we would all do if we put our houses out to contracts with contractors. The bids came in more than we could afford. We go back and say, not so much on the marble countertops, okay? Or maybe we can do 3 bedrooms on a full. So what flexibility
Into
do the
that
engineers
government
have?
bidding situation, that's coercion.
How long are the bids good till? They all have an expiration,
30 days.
30 days.
Were there any other town people involved in the decision-making of what was going into the bid and what wasn't? In other words, this woman up here said that there were decisions made to put in, you know, a better heating system that ran on propane and a security system in all of the wells and that type of thing. But were the selectmen ever involved in those types of decisions? As to say what, I mean, maybe you guys really need to sit down and go back and say, you know, what can we cut out of this project? Because quite honestly, the increase is ridiculous, and I hope to God it doesn't pass the town, to be perfectly honest with you.
The choice is yours, if you choose not to vote, you can do that.
But that's not the question, that's not the question I just asked you. I said, have you guys sat down and really looked at what you can cut out of this? In other words, there's an administrative office that somebody over here
Yeah, we
commented
have
on.
looked at it.
You really need that?
Yes, we have.
You got the business office down here on the other street.
We have looked at it.
You know, I mean, you really got to look at where the fluff
The
is.
maximum amount that we could have cut out of this project without affecting the actual operation of the treatment plant was less than $500,000.
Well, that's a lot. Why don't we look at taking that out?
$12 million, that's a lot.
To have the money out of the 3 million increase.
No, but hear me out, hear me out. When he says you risk losing the SRF funding, that's very true. If you go back, you know, number one, you're gonna have to wait 6 months for another town meeting. Number two, you're gonna have to redesign the facility. That's gonna go back to DEP, and then you have 3 months to review that again. The SRF's not gonna wait around for us to, you know, they have other communities that need this money and are willing to take it. There's no
The offer from
guarantee,
the SRF was made in
And I think-
2010.
there's no guarantee that when you reapply to the SRF, that you're gonna qualify for that funding. So you could be throwing that 2% loan out.
Certainly, the SRF would be be supportive of lending us less money. It's a state thing. If we go to them and say, we're going to go back and try to drive the cost from 12 million to 11, will you give us 90 days or 6 months? You would think they'd be supportive of it.
So everyone's agreeable to what?
I don't know. And you got to come back and tell us
Well,
what.
I mean, see, everything was a question of timing, and it's all in place right now. It's not to say that that's going to happen again. We were really fortunate to get that SRF grant. We tried to get it to make it well, we were close in those days. The very fact that they had issued us an incentive to put points on our application and got us up in the top running for this particular round of funding. And once again, the funding depends on what the federal government gives to the SRF to distribute. Some years they give them a lot of money, some years they don't give them much at all. So it was all a very fortunate bit of timing to land that SRF grant. I won't call it a grant because it's not free, but for want of a better word. You can't guarantee that's going to happen again. And, you know, we could end up with a regular market bond at that point, or whatever the going rate happens to be.
The bottom line is, I'm not trying to defend the logic on the low interest rate that we get makes up almost for that difference between 9 million and $12.3 million increase. Is that correct?
Well, I think it's also fortunate that in talking with the SRF, I'm told about the agreement, they gave us some assurance that that would also be a year cost. Because in a lot of instances, once that money is distributed, you would have had to go to the private markets on that 5%. So once again, you're in a pretty fortunate place. It's time that money's available to give us more money for the project.
What's the projected lifespan of the plant and the membrane? Sorry, go ahead.
First of all, town council will be at town meeting, I know that for a fact. So you can have the answer to that question when you're making that presentation.
I'm corresponding with it.
Right. My question is, if we do these expensive $13.25 or $14.25, I mean, I have 20 water bills that'll be coming to me every single month, besides my own personal water bill.
Right.
If you make a profit, what's going to happen to the profit that you make? And I don't want to hear that it's, I don't want to hear, but, I mean, can it go back, what I'm asking, can it go back into this project so that you can keep the rates maybe lower?
The thing is, like as the years go on, you will pay more of this off in your debt service.
Right.
Okay. Then you can bring the rates down.
But what if you make a profit in 2013?
But
Then you can apply it to next year's one.
That's what I'm saying, and that's maybe another point.
because it all goes into the enterprise account.
Right.
Okay, and the enterprise account is the water department has to run on that. So that if any overages stays in the enterprise account, any interest, anything that comes with the enterprise account goes back in.
And I think a lot of people do not understand what the enterprise account is. And, excuse me, thank you. You know, we're all here for the same reason. That it's going to cost us $3.5 million more, and I think a little respect to listen to what they're saying so that we can get some of these answers, because I have a lot of questions.
Yeah, I know.
And come town meeting, I can't ask it, so I'm asking them tonight.
I mean, someone's asking me a question.
Okay, then.
Sorry.
All right, so if you reduce that rate, so now you're saying it's into the enterprise fund. I think there are a lot of people that do not understand what the enterprise fund is. So I think that needs to be explained, that you can make so much, what's left over, overage, so you gotta sell this. And if you don't sell it, and right now from what I'm hearing, unless you get non-water users at town meeting, this thing's gonna go down, and you need a 2/3 vote.
Well, you know, it's like I said, you know, if and I have said it before, believe me, I don't take happiness this and having to spend this kind of money.
Nobody-
So that the town of Raleigh and all its residents can have quality water, okay? Of what it's gonna cost to operate, what it's gonna cost to build. And all this cost, because people say to me, and I've heard it, and people, oh, well, my water bill, it's gonna cost me more to water my lawn, okay? We're gonna be supplying your house bottled water. When people say to me, well, it's gonna cost me X amount of dollars to water my lawn. Well, I have taken all the expense, the energy, and everything of building, you know, to take part, to take what we do and water the lawn. It doesn't make me happy. I'm not happy about it, you know? And yes, you're gonna see the bills increase, but don't pour it out on your lawn. You're gonna be, you know, if and when this plant is built, and it will be built, one way or the other, it will be built. And so, you know, you look at ways to conserve, you know? There's all kinds of ways if you want to water your lawn. Single point, a well, use, you know, like that. I wouldn't use potable water to water your garden and your lawns and stuff, because it costs a fortune to produce this. And
What's the fine gonna be if we don't do this?
Oh, I mean, fine.
For the first 30 days, goes on a schedule of $500 a day. No, $250 a day to $500 a day to $1,000.
Okay.
So, after 1 month, you're just $30,000.
How do you get 30,000? So 30,000, so about $300,000 for the year?
Yes. And you still have to.
As it says, we have to build a plant, it's gonna be funded through the water bills.
Yes.
So if I want to go and put in my own well,
You can do that.
I can't do that?
You can.
Oh, I can.
You can, but you
So I, $9,000, I've got a well. I don't have to pay it anymore. So if I want to take a home equity line in my house, put my own well. So that's one of the things. I have this 30 of us who go out and do that. I mean, that pot will shrink, it does this. So,
But you still need other things like fire protection.
well, I don't care if the water being used to put out my house is not.
Just because you're really going well, doesn't mean that there's no further cost. You have to maintain that well, you have to buy electricity, power.
Well, you have to buy electricity. I've got well for 35 years, and it's cost me $400.
If you plan on bringing it, test it. And not just power. We're seeing a pretty wide range of test products. It's all pilot. Secondary contaminant, one of our tests is $1,500.
But I think the point is the cost is going to go up to $1,000, over $1,000 a year for an average user. And in 9 years, we're going to recoup the cost of the well.
This is true, we can do that. Once again, as long as you take precautions to ensure that you're not going to miss it. And once again, not just with an additional municipal well. Is that well going to stay good for the whole time that you have it? Or is it going to be good for the first year and fail the second year? You're going to take a piece of it, just like we.
Have you, I don't know, we kind of touched about this before, but when you come to town meeting, and if this does not pass the town meeting, will you have an alternate plan? Or have you even considered alternatives? And yes, there is a consent order, and yes, we gotta build something, but have you considered the alternative if you don't prevail at town meeting?
What is the alternative? You tell me.
We have to come up with.
You tell me, what is the alternative?
No,
You tell us.
And Scott, you really don't need to be over the top.
No.
That is a rational question.
I don't know.
So you're saying you're not prepared to speak to an alternative? Is that your answer?
Well,
If
Give
you
me an
don't,
alternative.
seriously, if your town meeting doesn't happen,
Give
are
me
you
an
just gonna
alternative.
stand there and yell at people?
No, give me an alternative.
John,
You're asking for an alternative. Give me an alternative.
no, I'm asking, have you as the water board professionals, have you discussed it? And do you have, clearly you don't because you kind of attacked it.
Clearly, under an ACO, what is the alternative? Do you know?
Well, that's what I was getting at. Maybe you can go back to the design and figure out what you can
Go back
scale
to the
back.
state
No, go back, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying when the lady was talking about the heating system, maybe you go with the cheaper heating system, those type of things, and see what you can whittle that cost down as, you know? I mean, we all want to go out and build a spacious mansion and live in it if we can, but the fact of the matter is, there's only so many dimes in the pocket, so you gotta cut things back. Maybe you don't put hardwood floors in and you go to carpet for a few years, you know? Those are the type of things.
Can we ask a professional question? I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Barbara.
Barbara. If you put in a lot of other, how many other plants have you put in your firm? Dozens, 2 dozen? Just
Over
a few?
100,
Over 100?
over the last 100 years.
And so you've encountered towns that have, I'm sure this can't be a new situation that you've seen.
Correct.
And with consent orders, and if funding isn't passed, and I'm sure sometimes we've had to go back 2 or 3 times to get funding for buildings, what do you find would happen if we don't get, and this is an unfair question to you, but what, you know, is, what would be alternatives that would come up if this doesn't get funded? Do we go back and look at a different type of plant, you know, address the consent order? What would you recommend?
I would recommend sitting down with the state, there's 2 groups at the state. We would want to talk to the funding group and also the drinking water group and see if we can come up with some mutual plan that we could keep the funding and somehow reduce some of the costs of the plan.
Possibly build a different plan. Okay. That's what I was asking for.
Yes.
Is there a different alternative that's less expensive that could do the same job?
There are different alternatives, but the more you change this, the more you're likely to be in violation of the ACO, or you may not get the state funding. That's why it's important for all groups to sit down and kind of come to a mutual agreement so we can kind of guarantee that whatever changes we make, you'll still get the 2% funding.
But the fact of the matter is, there is a potential bargaining situation that we could get into with the state on this. So you
Like
could,
John mentioned, we probably could take out $500,000.
but you could also potentially, I mean, if the town does not, or the water rate people don't come up with the money and they say no, and the state has this order that you gotta have this thing done by a certain date, well, I mean, if you don't have the money, you can't get it done. So the state's gotta give you a little bit of flexibility in terms of an extension here
So
or
if we're
something.
paying a $300,000 a year
To
fine.
have that meeting you described before our town meeting, sit with the funding.
We can try to, yes.
And could you come out of that with perhaps a target number that's less than the bids came in, but obviously higher than the 9 million?
Yeah, we could do that, yeah.
Is
Based
the
on,
funding for the state for the 9 million there already? So it's really, if this 3 million doesn't get approved, we can still get the 9 million and maybe try and work within that budget?
We can, to work within the 9 million budget will significantly affect your schedule because there'll be significant redesign. So the goal would be to do some kind of change that would help you do it quickly, but also take some cost, as much cost as you could get rid of in the shortest period of time.
that would seem wise to follow that path between now and town meeting, because the feedback we're getting here is that there's a realistic chance this will be voted down if you go for the full. And having a plan B is a good plan.
Well, the other thing too is, have the water board, other big capital things that I've been involved with here, the fire department and the library, which are multi-million-dollar endeavors, they always got a group of citizens involved as a advisory board, and the bridge was in the bridge committee as well, when we rebuilt the bridges. But did the water board reach out and have any kind of an advisory group that they worked with to try and get ideas? Like, instead of doing this tonight, did you guys have any kind of a group that you sought input from, or just at the hearing that was had?
Well, I actually sent invitations out for groups and had for boards and commissions and had no response.
Did you go to the selectmen?
Yes.
We'll take it up with them.
Invited me twice, formally, to Field trips to see a filtration plant.
No, I'm talking about an advisory board, very much,
Advisory.
right. No, it would be under the guise of, generally, it's the moderator would appoint.
This was in the early stages of engineering. When the invitations went out to go on field trips to just look at it.
I don't want to hog all the questions. I got one more I'm dying to ask, and that is with the time that's going on. When were the bids put out? How long ago?
February 29th,
February 29th, and they're good for 30 days?
exclusive of Sundays and holidays and Saturdays.
Okay. So they still, before town meeting, those bids will have expired?
Yes.
So that you could be coming and asking for $3 million for funding for a project that you're going to have to go back out and rebid, correct?
No.
Or you can ask them if they'll honor those bids?
We made, in discussions with town council, we were looking at expiration time. It is legal to award a bid contingent upon appropriation.
Okay.
So we have made the bid to Kinsman Corporation contingent upon appropriation.
Okay.
There's a gentleman over here who had his
That's
hand
just
up.
the whole process in place.
Sir, you have a question?
How much design growth is in this project? You've got 1,800 customers. Have you designed it for 3,000 or 2,500, something like that? Is the whole membrane filter, was it competitively bid, or are they the only supplier of membrane? Those kinds of issues.
There are 2 membrane skids, and there's 100% redundancy. And the membrane skids are sized to treat what wells 3 and 5 can do at a maximum rate with a little percentage above that. So technically, if one of those skids went out, you could still provide the full amount of the flow. You could also look at adding additional wells and not have 100% redundancy. The membrane manufacturer, because we only piloted one membrane, DEP only allows you to bid one membrane. If we had piloted more, we could have, and that probably would have been $50,000 to $100,000 more to pilot other membranes. We could have allowed other membranes to bid.
Does the storage tank that you currently have allow you any give and go, as far as when the membrane goes down, the system goes down? Does it give you a half a day, 2 days, 5 days?
Well, there's additional storage under the plant.
Right, there's a 150,000 gallon clear well that the finished water pumps draw from. So you have that additional storage, plus you have the storage on Prospect Hill. I'm not sure what the days, I'm guessing a couple days.
Depends on the season. In the summer, it can be only 1 day. In the winter, it's 2 to 3 days. Depends on the time of year.
But,
Reduce pressure.
going back to the size of the plant, is it 1.5 times the size of your current customer base?
No,
Actually,
it's based solely on what the wells can produce.
produce it maximum.
So it actually, you're getting into an area where the town has a Water Management Act permit, and if they pumped all their wells, they would go over that allotment. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to build something that is going to go over the allotment that the state allows you to pump.
So if you double your customer base over the next 10 years through building construction and so on, you have to add another membrane filter.
Potentially.
To the existing building, or would you have to add to the building?
You may be able to squeeze it in, yes, but the likelihood that the population is going to increase that much is very slim, I believe, in Rowley.
Can I ask the question a little different way? If we develop the same bacteria and manganese problem in well 2, we have the other 2 wells, this plant does not have sufficient capacity to treat well two.
Well, it's a question of being able to get the raw water from the tube to the plant first before it goes to distribution. So you either have to run a new water main all the way down to 3 to 5.
You don't want to, but the answer is we're in deep
Miles
trouble.
and miles and miles.
So
It's impractical.
if you're treating these two wells at maximum don't supply water for the whole town at maximum either. Well,
Not
out
during
to
the
like-
summer.
We need another plant.
So, there was a time when we just had, well, 2 or 3. Well, the building boom went through it. When I started here, we only had 1,300 connections, we had 1,700 now. So there was actually 400 connections since I've been here.
How long was that? Did that go?
I started in 1988,
So in 98, so it's increased one.
so you gained 400 service connections. And the state just recently reviewed that withdrawal. When we built well 5, they had redone our withdrawal permit and gave us a 3-tier plan of increases to cover expansion of the town. So recently, when they came into the last review, conservation of the Parker River Basin is taking a big turn. It's been turned as express basin. So now, I was supposed to be permitted for 200 million gallons annually, but they thrown a curve and said that if I pump more than 175 million, I have to go under review, even though it was permitted. So, withdrawals are a big issue. Trying to get the withdrawal permit for a resource in the Ipswich River Basin is impossible. They just wouldn't give you one. And up until recently, Parker River was pretty wide open until they got that designation of stress reservoirs. I think it would be hard pressed. And I'll be honest with you, we did well 5. They've been working on that for well over 5 or 6 years to get it all straightened out and get it up quiet. I myself worked on it for 2 or 3 years after we got it. It was a long time. Give them up very grudging. So, if the town starts to expand again, we have to drill another well just to provide a source. That's a pretty expensive and long and drawn-out process. I'm not sure they give it to you.
Where's well 2 and well 4 located? I'm assuming that they
Well,
exist.
2 is at the diamond in the ball field, the league field.
I'm sorry, 1 I meant.
Oh, well, 1 is up close to the gas station next to 1A. It's a little brick building across from the boat storage yard. That was the original well 1, but it was officially abandoned.
And why was that abandoned?
There's a dissertation from the engineers that we used to have. It had to do with water quality and production capability. And there was some issues about encroachment and land ownership around the well. Once again, because it was abandoned, you have to go through the entire approval process to get back to service.
What was the first well in Gaston?
The well was built in 1948. I don't know.
I think that's the place that have a gas station in.
Well number 4 was proposed and actually contested. It was in behind the back marsh where McDonald's is, like out across that marsh. Once you get to some dry land, it was actually a well 4 site that went under exploration years ago. Unfortunately, you need that 16 acres to make an approved zone 1. So the town owns a 5-acre piece of land that was donated to them, but it's not actually the location of the test well has that. So you would have to go in and either take by eminent domain or pretty good persuasion the amount of land that you need from the landowners in that area.
So plant sits right now, in 10 years, are we gonna need additional capital improvements to such as membrane? Does the membrane go bad?
Oh, we need capital improvements right now,
Right.
the actual capacity of the storage tank on Prospect Hill is actually only 65% of what the ISO insurance is for.
So with this particular
We need more
plant,
storage to meet that state.
well, with this particular plant that's gonna be built new, does the membrane need to be changed every few years? or
So
something?
every 7 years, it's about $100,000 change out.
Okay. And is that, how is that incorporated?
That's incorporate, we annualize that
Okay.
over the life of the plant.
$12.3 million is a lot of money. Who is overseeing our money to do this? What are the qualifications? Is there a financial officer or?
Actually,
Who's the money guy?
SRF administers most of the money.
I'm sorry, who?
I said the PWSRF, the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. When you get developed a statement from the contractor, they go to the engineer, who has to approve them. They come to the water board, I guess. We approve them. The selectmen have to approve them, and then it goes to the state. The state has a couple of checks and balances that they go through, and they disperse the amount of funds only for that bid. There's no block disbursement of
But there's not an expert money person who's gonna look at these bills before it gets to you guys.
Everybody works out.
There's a clerk of the works that will be on site on a daily basis and monitor what the contractor does, and they keep track.
Where do they come from?
They're usually an engineer or someone who has done a lot of inspection projects in the past.
They hired by the town or who do they?
Combination of the town and the engineering firm, we need to decide that.
Is that included in the budget?
Yes, it's in the budget.
So we've seen an increase of $3 million in 2 years. What is the chance that we're not going to see another 2 to 3 million between now and when the project's completed?
Once you sign the contract, you watch it.
No overrides? I mean, they can't come back and say this.
There's a budget for 5%. Our history has been 2% change orders on our projects.
So material costs,
And that's included in the cost that we showed you, the 12.3 million is in there.
but once the contract is signed, the material costs, nothing, labor costs can go up?
He has to put in his budget what he thinks costs are gonna increase to.
And if they're tied, that's set in stone and there's.
Yeah,
no
there's
negotiation.
this volume of plans. There's 99 sheets here, and there's volumes that are this thick, double-sided, that becomes the actual contract for the contractor, and he has to live by the terms of that contract.
I'm assuming it's a performance bond, so if something happens.
Correct.
This insurance kicks in, so somebody else can finish with it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty heavily scrutinized when you take state money. If you were doing this under a private one,
I don't say that cost probably escalated because of financial crisis.
well, I mean, they charge us an administrative bargain as well, right?
Yeah.
What was the SRS?
I don't recall any.
$18,000.
How much?
18,000.
18,000?
Laura, and they do monthly accounting reviews of all of the files, and they,
Right, there's a cash flow that will get on the schedule, and every day we'll be looking at what's going on in the treatment plant. And that will be working through our work, through the state, through our office, through the selectmen, and then paying our bills. Hopefully.
I think the urgency in the water department side of this is we're worried that the levels of manganese are going to rise to the point where it's going to neutralize the effect of the chlorine and let this bacteria go up. We don't want that to happen. It's happening
years of stuff up there, John, was that just an intense time you tracked, or have you got all that kind of data for the last 5 years?
No idea, it's just progressively escalating.
So what, you could generate a trend line to say that it was here and here over 5 years?
Yes.
Okay, that would help make your case.
And if the system fails after it's off and running, is there a warranty by the contract?
Yes, I believe
What's the warranty guarantee?
The warranty on the entire plant is 1 year. The warranty on the membranes is 3 years.
1 year is not really a lot, it's just 1 year. So we should have insurance or something to make, to back it up, because we're making a $12 million investment, and if something happens after a year, we're gonna be out of luck.
Typically, we see that problems happen in the first 6 months after you go online, and usually after a year, there's... Usually. I mean, there's risk involved, yes.
So we should have insurance or something like that, just in case something happens, is that prohibited?
Well, no, I mean, we have general liability insurance anyway, so Station 5, we start by light.
Well, that's
The first time.
hazardous insurance.
No, that's actually the stuff. The first time was $30,000. The second time was like $17,000 or $18,000 equivalent vehicles. They paid that. And then actually the third time was relatively minor, like $5,000 or $6,000. They paid that. So I was actually surprised.
I just want to see a $13 million break down that.
I agree. So, once again, if it seems like there's an emergency, we get risk. It's bacteria and things like that. During one of these events, we actually had to issue a protocol notice. Didn't last very long. The kind of stuff to keep you up.
Well, John, I don't think anybody's against water treatment plant, because we voted $9 million.
Oh, I know.
What they're looking at is this $3.3 million increase all of a sudden. That's what's happening in the water. I mean, they didn't pass a water treatment plant.
I can tell you, no one's more surprised than I was. But I can tell you something else too that I feel was a factor. I feel it was all of those contracts built in a huge contingency. Just because of the things I was saying earlier, when you see stuff increasing to that kind of percentage, I mean, this guy's going to be in there for almost 2 years. Where are his costs going to be 12 months from now, 15 months from now? He's going to be paying $5 a gallon for his fuel. That's probably about 50%. How do you, if I was him, I'd cover myself pretty big. So, you got to attribute some of it to that, whatever contingency over his own. I think that could be a good cause.
When you look at the bids, the first four lowest bids, then, $400,000 one another. Bids come in, I couldn't believe it.
Not expecting to see
I did not expect these bids to come in for this.
Can you put the slide where it gets to the 12 million?
That one?
Yeah, the
lion's share
is,
is-
Kinsler is 9.7, I think.
Yeah.
And so we're looking here at 12.3. You're saying that the bids have come in at 12.3 now?
No, so the 9.7 plus the 5% contingency gives you the 10.2, which is here.
Okay.
That's what you're seeing there. Kinsman's bid at 9.7 plus 5% contingency is that number.
So maybe just dense. Why are we looking at 3 million more?
Right.
What? Well, if it was 9.7 plus the 5 is 10, and you're looking for 3 million over the 9 that was funded. Where's the other 2 million? Or am I just missing it?
There was an increase in engineering design.
Yeah, and
The meter
Oh, okay,
program?
I'm looking at the wrong number.
I believe the meter program is done, right,
Isn't
John?
the rates paid for that now?
Yes,
It's paid.
Why is that?
The 650,000, the meters are all put in, and we've been
That,
paying that.
that wasn't just meters. The 650 wasn't just the meter program.
The cost for the 650
There was
is all
other-
these items.
But we're already paying for that, aren't we?
Yes, but it's
Yes,
part of
that's
the
a
9
separate
million
bill.
appropriation.
There's certain costs that
We've already incurred a
Yes,
bunch
I-
of costs.
won't cover. One of them is design. They won't cover that. The other one?
Everything you guys did, the
The meter,
650.
the upgrade.
Yeah. So SRF doesn't cover these
That
costs.
was actually a separate.
Actually, well, that's wrong. They do cover engineering construction. They would not cover engineering design.
The meter job is that much.
yes, sir.
Regarding bottom line expenses, can you discuss the cost effectiveness or logic of going from 4 billing cycles to 12, which was going to obviously increase administration costs, processing payments every single month, as well as such things as postage?
It's actually to cut down the sleeping shot. When your rates go up to this level, to get a 3-month bill.
Well, there would have to be a restructuring on
You
the
get a serious
3-month cycle.
It's like any of the other utilities that have to bill as well on a monthly basis. It's like you only got 4 heat bills a year or 4 electric bills, 4 cable bills. There's a big one.
It also helps you monitor your usage better. So if you, in the summer, you only get a bill every 3 months and you're, say there's a leak in your irrigation system or something, you're not gonna know about that for 3 months. Versus if you get a bill every month, you'll know that quickly. So it does actually help you as a customer, because if there's a problem in your system, you'll recognize that sooner.
But won't it also cost the water department more to process 12 payment cycles as opposed to 4?
Yes, it does.
And we'll pay for that.
But
Can you
it is
back to the-
advantageous.
can you back to the numbers
People
again?
get to track their usage. Once again, leak detection is a big issue.
Yeah.
Oh, those.
Yeah.
You can amass quite a bill to a leak over 3 months.
Yeah, running toilet or whatever.
A running toilet has to do 150 to 300 gallons a day.
Yep.
So you just being an accountant at heart,
Am I not?
I gotta get the numbers are gonna work. And if we're looking at 9.7 million, was the bid that you opened from Kinsman?
Yeah.
Was that that was just recently, in February?
Right.
And so, okay, and so why are we looking at 3 million more? Did they issue a new bid that's 12? It's,
So
hang on,
9.7 million times 1.05
it's
is,
450,000,
right, it's 10.23 million.
right.
And then there was an increase in what the Raleigh Water Department did. Are these numbers not adding up? Should I double check that?
No, okay, so that's,
1.42 plus
all right.
0.6.
No, they work, it's just not,
Okay.
my brain's not.
I think we already spent the money in the first 2 categories.
Yes.
Or
We've already
some of this and most of that.
And we're gonna get it back.
I think we tried to compare the 9.7 mil with the 10.23 mil.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I have a similar question. Break the 10.23 down.
Okay, so you want to show the 5%
Show us
contingency?
what,
Why it went up 3 million?
site costs, building costs, call, filter costs. Break it up into 4 or 5 different increments to show where that 10.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just, who's giving you the 10.2 estimate? for plant
That's a
construction?
solid number, so it's the bid at 9.744
Okay. And then the
times
other
the
numbers.
5%. Now, it's
It had to be-
possible that we may not need all that 5%.
Okay,
That's just a,
Right.
okay, all right, thanks.
Okay.
I know it's a lot, but.
well, because of money.
Go back to the slide with the bids on it.
Any of these companies, logos?
Kinsman is in southern New Hampshire somewhere, I forget where. They're actually doing the Newburyport wastewater treatment plant. Waterline is in Seabrook. North Atlantic is in Raleigh, right? Or they're on Route 1 somewhere. Maybe it's Gloucester, but they're local. RH White is in Auburn, Massachusetts. Penta is in central New Hampshire somewhere.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I'm back on the, I hate to have you go back.
That's okay. Which one?
The one that showed the increases from, that one there, what were the increases in engineering and design?
Okay, those are here.
Yeah.
So extra work at well 2, additional conservation commission submittals, the earth removal permit, the easement for the roadway access.
Yeah, so you weren't planning to go up Pingree Farm Road at the beginning?
No, we had planned to use the access, the paved access through the development.
Condo development.
Which is
Right.
private.
It doesn't allow the water department to drive on that.
That's a private way.
Right.
They don't allow the water department to use that road. Why would you think you could put a water main down?
The water main's already there.
Well, whatever you want
Right.
to put up.
That was just our understanding, and once we got into the design, they told us we couldn't do that, so that was an
The
increase.
problem with Pingree Farm Road is the access in the front is square to 133, you can't get very low. So the reason we wanted that easement from the actual condo association, so we could clear those corners, that you can make construction trails and
Now-
equipment and that sort of thing.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I've also heard in these rooms that there's an issue with the right of way at Pingree Farm, that the abutter to that, the neighbor, is claiming some of that road, is that gonna be an issue?
No. We've already, we had, it's both previous owners. Wasn't that the road, and that road is up.
So this is cost overruns, that's why that figure jumped.
That's why the top figure jumped, yeah, the 1.29 to the
I mean,
1.42.
there's things you find where, site investigation, you find ledge that was higher than it was supposed to be. The hill that we were actually gonna build a plant into, the slopes were so radical, you had a choice of taking the material out of the sheet pile, and the whole thing, trying to hold it back. The sheet pile, we added $200,000 to the cost of the contract, whereas hauling the dirt out is going to be cheaper.
So why are they pushing you back?
Because of where the environmental zones are relative to that lot.
The old cabbage field.
Yeah, we have there's the 100-foot buffer zone, there's the 200-foot riverfront, there's the zone 1 from the well itself. The plant can't be located in any of those zones. So if you get stuck over the very corner of the lot, back up against the state border.
So all those restrictions have to do with the existing well, it's got nothing to do with the conservation restriction?
Well, yeah, no, there's
It's
natural
both.
heritage areas in here and everything. There's a ton of overlapping zones that push that plant into that far. Because you can't have it. Number one, you can't have it in zone 1 wells. And when they set up that
You can't put a treatment plant in zone 1, that's gonna treat the water coming out of zone.
Right, exactly. You can't.
You have to, it has to be a
Zone 1 is safe, right?
I mean, you take well 2 within the aquifer protection district, you got a gas station sitting on top. But you can't put a water treatment.
Well, it's like any, it's almost like a grandfather thing. If it's there before the regulation, it stays. So I'm just doing
You take the water out of the well, treating it.
You have to comply with it.
Yeah, that's definitely a mistake.
We actually had to change the status of well number 5 with the original zone 1 configuration of 400-foot radius. Couldn't fit the plans, couldn't fit everything. So there's a regulation that says that if we pull the suction heads up above 48 feet, we could call them tubular wells and cut the radius down to 250. So by doing that, we actually eked out the corner of that lot. Otherwise, we're going to area. And it can't go over well 3 because it's national heritage wildlife. The whole lot. There's a lot of constraints. Yes.
Is Kinsman guaranteeing, or are they guaranteeing that this is done by, I don't know, say March of 2015?
Yes, once we give them a notice to proceed, that's when the POC starts, and the contract says they have 20 months to do the project.
So would we be able to give them that by July?
If town meeting votes for the 3.3 million, yes, they will be able to start in July.
And what happens if they run over time? Are we under a mandate by the state and a violation then? And they pick up the cost?
Do they have penalties?
Yes, there are liquidated damages in the contract. If they run over that time, it's calculated that that would cover the cost of the consent order.
So they would pay, you would have to pay?
Through liquidated damages, they essentially would pay for any fines for the consent order.
And that's part of the bid?
Yes.
So we're paying for it?
Correct. But from what I've been told, 20 months is a reasonable time from the contractors. Sometimes you can set the time frame too short and they'll surcharge your bid because of that. I asked them that particular question, is 20 months enough time? And they said that was a good amount of time.
What is the noise level going to be for the abutters in the area? Treatment plant, I don't know, if the actual, it doesn't roll or people are going to be hearing this thing at nighttime when they're sleeping or?
No.
Again, operation of the plant itself.
After construction, no one, the drives in and out will be as frequent as they are now. There'll be daily visits to the treatment plant like there are daily visits to the well.
Access to the well is going to be over Hickory Farm Road.
Yes. Not Bridal, I forget the name of the other.
Bridal Path.
Bridal Path.
And that's, like I said, we've asked, and working with the condo association in there for the easement, so that we can do redo the mouth of Pingree Farm Road where 133 and Pingree Farm meet, because it's kind of hammerhead, and so that the construction vehicles and the scheduled trailers that will be in delivering chemicals and supplies for the station will have, have access.
I want to go back to the fees again. Now, if the fees are more, and say you do have like extra money profit, will that go back towards paying some of the loans? Probably like you reduce your rate up to next year for the water payments.
Well, along with, basically the discussion here tonight,
So that's eye-opening that we've been planning for that. With
Actually,
the water for last time.
we've started a gate project 2 years ago. We're taking all the gates that don't hold or are non-functional. And we've been slowly replacing them. Expensive.
But you've been doing that based on current rates, so the assumption is you would be
Yeah,
able to
we
do
can.
that based on the
We
rates.
can.
that
I
function.
mean, we do a few each year.
Some of the dates on the ones with the working on the older trunk lines, the first ones that were in Main Street, 133. We've replaced quite a few on Main Street. They're 40s, 1944, 1946, in the 40s.
Back when we
Really
built
changed.
And the other thing is on the same hand, you need to set up some emergency fund that you can go to when you have a problem.
Sure, I have one of my business. So
Yeah, so, 1 year we went to redevelop a well, and the thing fell apart, it cost $40,000. When we get beyond the town meeting, we can't move any money, so there's no way to move money from any other area, you have to take it out of your existing budget. There's no reserve, there's no stabilization, overlay, whatever you want to call it, general fund, yes. We don't have that ability. So really, you know, if you can buy a little bit of surplus each year, put it in a fund like that, it's a hedge. It's okay, something else.
I also think another thing we should stay with the town meeting, which I thought was very helpful last time I came to this meeting, was we pointed out what other towns in the area pay for water. We were substantially less than a lot of other towns.
Yeah.
We're probably in the ballpark with a lot of them now. I mean, it's not like we're going to be that much higher.
We're probably going to get up on high rollers.
Well, yeah, but I mean, we're putting in a plan now where some of these towns put them in 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
The price of what this, I mean, it doesn't surprise me at all the bill came in this much more. Now, you know, if you look at just commodity costs, I couldn't see it coming in substantially more than this.
Yeah, I mean, my own town in particular, we had a consent order in 1995. We've been paying for 17 years. 3 more years we're out of this. That plant in 1995 was $8 million. And if you do an inflation conversion on that, it's $12 million.
Just point of interest, the wells we have now, what do they produce gallons, how many gallons per minute? Do you have an estimate?
Well, 2 is good for like, just great stuff. We've got 500 to 600 gallons.
500 to 600.
Yeah. Wells 3 and 5, not so good. When I first started, they usually get 400 a minute out of well 3. Actually, we're doing good now. Well 5 started out at 60. We're probably on 300 now. Just like that. So,
Those aren't good science. Those are all steady decrease, so we might be in trouble, and we might need to think about getting another well.
The state allows you to put in satellite or replacement wells, so if they get down to a level where that's a big concern, we would consider doing that.
Is it the water that's running out, or is there something happening to the well?
well, I mean,
I know you've had issues with sand and whatnot in the past. That's why.
over a period of time, the actual weed itself is quite, the sand or whatever, medium of that well that happens to be. Some wells like well 2 are really coarse medium, 40 years, beaten out pretty good. And it still seems to maintain its output. Well 3 I've seen increase quite a bit. You know, we redeveloped that pretty
So when the plant's in
It's
full
not
operation.
It's not an easy thing for a project this size. I mean, you know, I spoke about my hometown, getting a consent for a lot. Within 2 years, we got a consent for a sewer as well. That was not very easy. So in the space of 2 years, we were at 60. It was in 1995. And $800,000 or $900,000 a year.
So when the plant is in full operation, we're not going to notice any reduced flow or volume.
No.
And it's going to go through the plant.
Pressure and flow are pretty much dictated by the well, the storage tank.
But you just said there's gonna be more storage, because there'll be more storage, so.
Yeah.
So wouldn't that mean the flow would be better?
It's not necessarily.
So all the flow is that's coming out of the 2 wells here. Right now, flow comes out of well 3 and goes here, and it comes out of well 5 and goes here. And afterwards, it's all gonna come out of here. So it actually won't affect the flow patterns a whole lot because the wells are relatively close together. If you think about flow in a water system, it's kind of like electricity. It goes path of least resistance, and that's why, you know, water from here is going to have to fight against water from well 2 to get past there, so it stays in this area.
Right. Well, well 2 is a higher output.
Right.
It tends to hold the west side of water area.
If there's no other questions, I will